Welcome back, everyone, to the Raging Waters Safe Harbors podcast. My name is Kevin Pardo. I'm so glad you're joining us today. Well, let me be the first to wish you happy May 4th. May the 4th be with you. I was reminded of this morning as my wife was doing some promotion for the upcoming Sheep and Fiber Festival, and she did some great work this morning. It got me thinking about Star Wars this morning. It got me thinking. I yesterday picked up, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. I picked up my new Dirty South pottery mug, and it is reminiscent of it's a UFO little beam coming down and a person being drawn up into it. And again, I can't help but think about X-Files. So I have three main things on my mind this morning. I've got Star Wars, I've got X-Files, and I've got Jesus. And I've got some things I want to say this morning. So let's start with X-Files. And then let's use that to jump into Star Wars. And then let's get to the business of hearing what Jesus has to say. And I think they're all telling the same story, by the way. Spoiler alert there for you. All right. Number one, X-Files is one of my favorite shows of all time. And I've tried to rewatch it, P.S., and maybe this disqualifies it from being one of my favorite shows of all time, but I've tried to rewatch it, and I still enjoy it for what it is, but it doesn't have the same allure as it did when I was watching it when I was 20 years old. All right? And at the end of the day, in that show, there's two major things going on. Number one, there's a lot more than two things, but two things that stick out to me. Number one, the truth is out there. That from the intro, everything, like the truth is out there. And everyone thinks that Agent Mulder is crazy because he believes that there is more going on than meets the eye. And over the seasons, that becomes apparently true, that there is stuff going on behind the scenes that's larger than anyone could ever have expected. And it's crazy to me because it always feels like to me that there is this reality going on in our world that this X-Files captures well. There are people in worldly power. They like their worldly power. They want to keep their worldly power, and they will tell whatever stories that they have to tell to keep their worldly power. And then there's people out there that sense that something isn't the way it should be, and they push against it. They try to expose it. They try to get to the root of it. They try to wave their hands and say, "Don't you see this?" And yet oftentimes their message falls on hard hearts and ears that can't hear what's being said. And I believe that we're living in a day and time such as this. I think we've always been living in this time. All of our lives, it's all of life has been this same power struggle. And P.S., if you want to completely nerd out over this, I think this is a story that the book of Revelation tells, that there are many Babylons. There are many, throughout history, many rulers and powers and people that rule over other people that rise up, and they have certain qualities about them. And that's the way it has been, the way it is, and the way it will be until this whole thing comes to an end. But I digress. So, X-Files, truth is out there. We're living in a similar situation, and it feels like the more that I talk to folks, there are people that believe that there's something more out there, and they want to expose it. They want to say, this is not the way that it should be. I can't tell you how many conversations I get drawn into nowadays of people seriously concerned. Concern's not even the right word. Are grieving just where Christianity is as a whole. And if it is, well, no, let me say it this way. And these folks are pretty convinced that it's not putting its best foot forward. And there are people being turned off left and right to this thing called Christianity and Jesus because of the way that it's it's an old story too. When religion makes compromises to get in bed with the government, like weird things happen. Anyway, you can tell where my mind's at. I'm kind of in the X-Files place. Like there's stuff going on. We need to pay attention to it. And what can you do? What can you do? Here's my segue to Star Wars, May 4th. What do you do when there's an evil empire? What do you do when the very forces of this world, and I'm going way beyond government here, my friends. I'm talking about things of this world that are not the way they should be, and things that are made to undermine our very soul and to steal our soul from us. Maybe even these would be the works of the devil, the ways of the world, all of that stuff, all right? What do you do in the face of an evil empire? And I rewind, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see right over here. Man, I've got so many visual props today. The original Star Wars poster. And if anybody's wondering, I've got the other two right here. The one in the middle is the best of them all, Empire Strikes Back. And so in Star Wars, you've got an empire. And you've got a set of rebels who are fighting against it. And you have a story of a young man who is found on Tatooine by the name of Luke Skywalker. P.S. They didn't even change his name. Anyway, lots of crazy stuff going on there for you Star Wars nerds. You'll get it. Everybody else will be like, that makes no sense. Anyway, but what happens is they end up through a lot of different things. They end up on this Death Star, this planet-destroying mechanism. And the final scene there on the Death Star, when Han and Luke and Leia and Chewie and R2 and C-3PO and Luke and Obi-Wan are all there on the Death Star, and they're trying to shut down the deflector shield so they can, do all this stuff. We see Obi-Wan fighting what we come to find out later on to be his Padawan, his apprentice, Darth Vader, a.k.a. Anakin Skywalker, Luke's father, who he didn't know this at the time. And to be fair to Luke, didn't know that Leia was his sister. Again, the nerds will get it. So, but in the scene, there's this crazy thing that happens. Obi-Wan is fighting and holding his own. I mean, like, we always know that the old man, even though they're not as strong and not as young, they've got like this old man spunk about them, and they stay in the fight. And he's holding his own with Darth Vader, even though Darth Vader is the ultimate force of the dark side and evil and Sithness, all this stuff. And then there comes this point where Obi-Wan realizes that the way to win is not going to be through him defeating Vader. But he realizes that his time is done. That it is, and the foreshadowing here in the rest of the movie plays out this way, that it's Luke's time to step into this role. I'm not going to give anything away if you haven't seen the movies for the next two movies, the cool story that unfolds and the arc that develops. But Obi-Wan in this moment just turns off his lightsaber and he allows Darth Vader to strike him down. In the face of evil, there is always these moments where people surrender themselves for the sake of the whole, for the sake of the fight. And if you go through all of the major stories that you know and love in your life, you're going to see these acts of surrender. Okay? And we, for the last 3 weeks, I think we did 3, basically one leading up to Easter, and then one kind of post-Easter. Yeah, last 3 weeks, we've been talking at a very real level about how that Jesus, at the center of the story of the New Testament, is Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ surrendering his life in the face of an evil empire and an evil world. And he lays down his life and he picks it back up again, right? It's Christ, his life, his teachings, his death, and his resurrection that we connect to. But there's this act of surrender that goes down. And I've been thinking, again, had a beautiful conversation yesterday with somebody about this very thing. And, I trying to navigate an X-Files world where there's truth out there and there's power players, has been, will be, always will be, that are doing their thing. And trying to find how we stand. And today, May 4th, brings me to this place of surrender. This place of surrender. I believe that I'm pretty 100% sure about my trivia here. I think Obi-Wan, the one who laid down his life in A New Hope, was the first one in the movie to utter, "May the Force be with you." I could be wrong about that, but I think I'm right. I'm going to have to look that up later on. Not going to do it right now. But stories keep on leading us back to this central truth that this is how we're created. And I think both X-Files and Star Wars point us to the greater, larger meta-narrative that we have always been caught up in. So the last few weeks, we've looked at how Jesus practiced surrender and set an example for us. I want to rewind kind of back, and actually what's really interesting about this is that at least the first time in the book of Mark, and it's in chapter 8, Mark is 16 chapters, so I'm almost right halfway. The first time Jesus ever says to the disciples, "I'm going to go to Jerusalem, I'm going to die," and he kind of gives them that heads up. The first time he does that is in chapter 8, and it's right before the passage that we read this morning. So right before the foreshadowing that I'm going to go and surrender, and I'm going to lay down my life. He then follows it up with the invitation to the disciples, to do the exact same thing. Because here's the reality, my friends. What do we do when we're people who want to expose the truth at the core of what truth is, and we just want to say to people, doesn't this make sense? Isn't this what is true and whole and right and good? And can't we allow our lives to be shaped by this truth? One of my favorite definitions, by the way, of the difference between a wise man and a fool is that a wise person is one that when they encounter the truth, when they encounter the truth, they change their lives based on the truth. A fool is a person when they encounter the truth, they change the truth to fit their lives. All right? The truth is out there, and whatever the truth is defines us. Because truth is truth is truth. All right? You get me? There are no alternative facts. Those are lies. Truth is truth. Okay, you got it. And as we stand in a place where we fight the good fight and we push against the things that are not the way they should be in this world, what do? How do we stand? What's our posture in this world? And all of that, my friends, has led me to this passage. So here we go. This is Mark chapter 8, and we're going to start at verse 34. Mark chapter 8, verse 34. This is the NIV. This is what it says. Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul?" All right? So Jesus is making clear to the disciples. And he's at P.S. I should have said this. Do you hear the first line? Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples. So this is the larger crowd that he is speaking to at this moment. And he says, if you want to be, in essence, my disciple, if you want to be my apprentice, if you want to be my Daniel-san to my Mr. Miyagi, this is you want to be my Luke Skywalker to Yoda. If you want to go down the list, you could just go forever down that list, all right? But if you want to be my disciple, my learner, the one who watches me and follows after me, then this is what he says. First requirement, deny yourselves. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves. They must say no to the things that simply are things. They must deny themselves. They must lay aside their will for the will of the Father. You remember Jesus? We talked about this a couple weeks ago in the garden. If there's any way that this cup can be taken from me, Jesus prayed, then may it be so. Then let it happen. But not my will, but your will be done. Bingo. There we go. That is denying ourselves. Take up their cross and follow me. Take up your cross. I'm going to bear a cross. I'm going to go to my death. I'm going to lay down my life. I'm going to, the word that we keep on coming back to today, I'm going to surrender. And you need to do that as well. This theme of dying, of crucifying and being crucified becomes a theme throughout the New Testament. So many times, so many places that we see Paul pick up on this very thing. So real quick, let me jump over here to Galatians 2. I think it's verse 20. Let's see here. Yeah. So in Galatians 2:20, he says, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. In the life I now live in the body, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not set aside the grace of God, for if righteousness could be gained through the law, Christ died for nothing. I'm crucified. I share in this death with Jesus. This is what he's talking about in Mark chapter 8. All right? You got to take up your cross and follow me. You got to go after Jesus. If Jesus is the truth, and he is, and the truth that Jesus says will set you free, like, then we go where he wants us to go. Man, this gets this place where you're like, what do I do with this? Because there's moments, and I deeply believe this, that we want to lash out. Like, I've actually said on my Facebook or on this podcast, the things that sometimes roll through my brain, I would be in so much trouble, my friends, because I sometimes want to lash out and to be angry. And my goodness, if yesterday, no, not yesterday, it was Friday, I saw this person pull these shenanigans while I was dropping my son off for high school. That, anyway, you see the point. But I want to go where Jesus goes. And if Jesus wants me to love those who hate, and if he wants me to stand in this world and lay down my life and not fight for my rights to get this or to get that, or saying that I deserve this, but instead surrender because those are the places he calls me, then that's what I need to do, because I need to follow him. I guess maybe the options here would be I could follow myself, my own screwed up sense of direction apart from God. I could follow that. I could follow the world, right? And the world says, get as much as you want, as quick as you can get it, and just make yourself happy. And then I could follow fill in the blank. I could follow a celebrity. I could follow a political personality. I could follow a team and a coach that I love. I read this book once. I could follow that person. There's all these places and people that we can follow. But the option is to actually follow and go with Jesus. That's what Jesus is saying here. Whoever wants to be my learner, who wants to walk with me and learn from me, must deny themselves, take up their cross, an instrument of death, and follow me. And he goes on, whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and the gospel will save it. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it. If you fight to keep your life in Jesus' economy, you're going to lose it. But whoever lays down their life, whoever surrenders it, whoever clicks off the lightsaber because they're surrendering, because they see the greater good and see what's coming, and they know their time to fight is done, right? And likewise, whoever is out there who's the Fox Mulders of the world from X-Files, who are driven, and it's their point to lose their life for the sake of the truth, right? And no matter where that takes them and what harm that could cause them. See, whoever goes about protecting their life, keeping it safe, keeping it controlled, there's the word, is going to lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and the gospel will save it. And then Jesus ends, verse 36, what good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his soul? A very common Jesus thing to do here, of going, your soul, that which lasts for eternity, is more important than anything the world has to offer in the here and now. All right? Like, say you did get the whole world by protecting your life, but you, in the midst of that, you forfeit your soul. We'll have to take a journey sometime over to the book of Jonah. But in Jonah, there's a very similar vibe. Jonah 2:8 says, "Those who cling to worthless idols forfeit the grace that could be theirs." Those who cling to something that's not going to last, they forfeit the grace that could be theirs. And at the end of the day, my friends, that's probably the thing that you're looking at with the if there's a through line between X-Files to Star Wars, and both of those originating from a larger truth that's always existed in the universe, God's truth. That's the way I would frame it. The through line is this. You're either going to give yourself to someone larger than who you are, and you're going to surrender your life for the sake of that work and for that person, or you're going to do whatever is best for you. And you're going to be navigated by the way you feel, what you like, what you don't like, the people you like and don't like, acquiring more power, more money, more influence. Like, that's going to drive you forward. Or you surrender, you lay down your life, and then you're in this place that life looks different. The things that used to be extremely attractive and distracting no longer are attractive or distracting, because you've laid down those things. You've laid down your life, you've taken up your cross, you're following after Jesus, you're practicing surrender, and things are different. And man, if I could give any, not that you're asking me to give advice or wisdom, how to live in this world, and this, by the way, would have been true 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it'll still be true 20 years from now. Like, how do you live in this world? You live in this world by doing that which you should and must and are the call that goes out from Jesus. Like, we do that. And at the core of his call is not, P.S., to fight for our rights, our prestige, our power, but it's all about laying down our lives for his sake. Bottom line. Okay? This is one of the biggest misinterpretations of all of Scripture, is that somehow Jesus empowers us to fight for our rights so that we will have something in this world that is better than people that don't. It's crazy. The Scriptures are very clear. Whoever wants to become a disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. Whoever wants to lose their life, whoever wants to save their life, will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and my gospel will save it. The path is surrender. The path is not control. The path is not gain. The path is not power. The path is not wealth. The path is surrender. And here is the most beautiful thing of all of this. You can choose to live that very thing today. Today, as you listen to this, like, you can choose surrender. You can say, God, here's my life. You can fill in all the things that you feel right now. And I'm concerned about filling all those blanks. But not my will, but your will be done. If there's any way that this cup can pass for me, Jesus, then let it pass, but not my will, but your will be done. We stand in the same space, right? Like, this is I wish that this, and this didn't have to be this way. And I wish that this could happen. But not my will, but your will be done. I surrender. I go where you want me to go. Man. It's always fun and clarifying to do these, especially on Sunday morning, knowing that that's kind of when they're going to be dropped. But there's days that as I'm sitting here, I'm hearing what I'm saying, and I'm being the Holy Spirit's doing its work to convict and change and challenge me. So, again, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, you know how to get a hold of me. Or maybe you don't know. Maybe I've never made that public. I guess, yeah, if you need to get a hold of me, my email, Kevin Pardo, Parido, at me.com. Give me a shout. Reach out. Hit me up on any of my social media platforms. I'd love to hear from you that you're listening along, or how this is challenging you or convicting you, or even better, if there's ways in which that I misspeak or that I say something that you don't agree with and you want to talk about more. Man, I would love to talk about that. All right, my friends. Well, have a great and wonderful Sunday, or whenever you're listening to this. And as always, may the 4th be with you. And we will talk to you soon. Have a great week.